Hola amigos, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am joined by the lovely Ella Matthews, who is a medieval romance author for Mills Boon. Hi Ella, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for having me on your channel.
Thank you so much for coming. I think Mills Boon authors are seen as a little bit of like the unicorns of the romantic publishing world, and we all want to know all about you and how it came about. And yeah, you almost have a mystical quality about you, so I'm very excited to hear all about your writing journey. So I know that you actually write two very different romantic genres. So what did you first start writing, and when did you first start writing would be the first thing I'd like to ask.
Well, I first started writing so long ago when I was I used to live and work in London, and I used to commute on the train, and it was an hour's commute. So I thought, right, I'll use the time to write, and I wrote contemporary romance to start with. But that's so bad, and no one will ever see it. It's like locked in the drawer, deep away.
Oh,
And then when I first, my first published writing was like little cozy crime novels for DC Thompson.
no, I did not know that. I knew about the contemporary romances because I read one of yours because I found it in the library, but I didn't know about the. My goodness.
Little cozy crime. So they're like no murder, no blood is spilt, but yeah, there's like a little adventure, like a quest, really. The little quest books, I think.
Like Famous Five for grown-ups.
Yeah, but with a romantic element. So I've always
You've always had the romance, yeah.
Yeah. So just have the romance in it. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So a pretty long time that you've been doing
this. So I was thinking about it. It was definitely before I became pregnant with my daughter, and she's now just turned 14. So 15 or 16 years. But obviously in those first few years, didn't make any money at all.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Didn't start writing properly until, I don't know, she must have been about 3 or 4. So it's been 10 years.
And was that then the contemporary romances that were published?
So that was the contemporary and cozy crime stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. So then what made you take like the leap, if you like, into medieval romance?
Well, I'd had this idea like for years about there's this couple that I don't think they had a name, and I could picture them. They were on a ride, and they were getting into trouble. You know, they were sort of things like that. And but I didn't really have a concrete story for it. And then Nick Cause, I don't know if anyone's heard of Nick Cause, but she was an editor at Mills Boon, and she just tweeted, "We're looking for medieval writers." I think they're always looking for medieval writers because there aren't that many of us. And I sort of emailed her. I can't remember what I said, but I just direct message her, and she responded, and I was so excited about that I was like, oh, this is the best thing. And then I went to that conference where I met you that first time.
Yes, because you hadn't been signed by Mills Boon yet at that point, had you?
No, I'd done the cozy crimes by that point. Yeah, so I went to Mills Boons are always at the RNA conferences. I went to they gave a talk, and Nick Course was there again, and they basically explained how they want their hero and their heroine to act, and the levels of sort of interaction between them. And then I literally went back to the room, and there's nothing much to do in those rooms, is there? You've got a desk, you've got a bed, and I just sat down and I wrote the outline for the story after seeing them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it was these characters, and I sort of fleshed them out with the characteristics that Mills Boon like. Not characteristics, that's the wrong word, like the background. There's got to be levels of emotional conflict. So yeah.
Yes.
Really fun.
Yeah, because that was something that I wasn't so aware of with Mills Boon, is that there are certain rules, is probably the wrong word, but there are conventions maybe that they like to follow, aren't there? Like I know, for example, that you can't have the hero or the heroine involved romantically with somebody else
Yes,
at any point during the story. They won't have that at all, even if the person isn't right for the hero or heroine. Yeah, they won't have that at all. So is there anything in particular for medieval romances that people need to be aware of if they're wanting to write them?
I don't think it's specific to medieval
Right.
romances. I think it's very much what they want. The key things, as you say, are not quite rules, but this is what
Yeah.
they want. The hero and the heroine have to be on the page for most of the story,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite hard.
Mm-hmm.
You have to all sort of background characters have to sort of, they're there to sort of maybe prompt something happening, but they
Mm-hmm.
must be faded out.
Yeah.
And each character must have, so they have a surface reason why they can't be together. But then they have to have like a deep meaning why they can't be
Mm-hmm.
together, and then they have to have an even deeper meaning why they
Right.
can't
Mm-hmm.
connect. And not just with the heroine, but with, say the hero can't connect with any woman because of a deep trauma or something. And then the heroine has to be quite, she has to be right for that hero, and their conflicts sort of iron each other out, if you like.
Yeah.
So you have to have these levels, and I don't think that's not specific to medieval. That's across the board.
Right.
That's what they want across the board. But within those parameters, you can come up with endless different stories, really.
Mm-hmm. But yes, I imagine it is quite difficult to have the hero and the heroine together for most of the story, because what I tend to do is my heroine like potters off and has a little think about the hero or complain or whatever, and works her stuff out, and then she'll come back again. I think is how I tend to do it.
Yes. Yeah. You can have that. They can separate. In fact, there's, towards the end, they almost always separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For a short period, but it's got to be quite short. And yes, if they're having a think about the hero, it can't be chapter and chapter go by. It's got to be a couple of pages, and they've got to be back together. Yeah. So if they have an argument, somehow you've got to get them back into contact with them.
Yeah.
And that is it is really, really hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long does it take you typically to write one of your books? Because I know that you are one of these like amazing writers who work as well as producing numerous books. So how do you kind of fit it around, and how long does it take you to write one of your books?
It takes about I'm writing for 4 months. So yeah, it takes 4 months to write one. But I write the bulk of it really quickly, say like within 8 weeks. And then I will spend the rest of the 8 weeks sort of going over it again and again and again to flesh it out, to make sure it's what they want.
Mm-hmm. And with the first draft, does that tend not to have as many of the historical details? Because that's how I would do it, is I would then add in like the historical details on the kind of second draft.
Yes. I mean, I'm trying to stick to a similar time.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the historical details I sort of already know them.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, one of my series is set in the years leading up to the 100 Years' War. So before I started the series, I read a lot about that, and then so I sort of knew it. So part of the story was linked to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So little details, maybe, yes, I would probably put in, but the big historical details will have to go in the first draft, because quite often the story is based
on kind of those. Awesome. Yeah, I just think it just sounds so fun. I really, really want to write historical at some point. I'm just kind of wimping out of it at the moment. I think it's the historical details that that scare me. Yes. But your books are quite a similar length to mine, I think, like traditional romance length. Is about between 50 and 60,000 words for you?
The historical line is unique with Mills Boon. It's all the others are 50,000, but the historical for some reason is 70.
Oh, okay. I didn't read it. Well, I really enjoyed your books because they flew by. The couple that I've read. So you've had a new release out, haven't you? And this is the beginning of a new series for you?
No, this one is the very end of the series.
Yeah. Oh, so you've already, because I've read 2, I think, of your first series, and they're like the women are all connected, aren't they?
So the first series was the House of Leofric, and there was a brother and 2 sisters.
Right.
And so
Okay.
yes, the 3 people are connected. And then this series is the King's Knight series, and it's 4 knights who are in an elite. Well, they call the King's Knights. They're like an elite warrior band, if you like.
Mhm.
And the one that's just released, he is the leader of the group of 4 men. So
Mhm.
yeah, so it's been really fun to write about him because he's becoming more and more isolated as the years have gone by, and he's very good at commanding people, but he's not very good at like having a social relationship with them.
Mhm.
And I sort of he's getting he sort of not grumpy is wrong word, like just you will do my way or the highway,
Mhm.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then he had quite a meek. He married quite a meek woman, and I thought, oh, I don't know how this is going to pan out. But actually, it turned out as I was writing it, he was shy, really, quite shy, and didn't
Oh,
know how
bless
to connect to
him.
people. And his wife just sort of, when she was with him, she was very much like she saw through his bluster and kind of like so sort of yeah, and they fell in love that way. That's if you see what I mean.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I really enjoyed writing about him more than
Yeah.
I was looking forward to it, but it was even more. He was really fun to write, and she was a lovely, lovely heroine as well.
Oh. So are you going to be starting a new series now then, or have you already started writing another one?
So my next book then, my next book is going to be with, like I said, duet with Mariam, no, Melissa Oliver.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know her. So we both write medieval. We both write for Mills and Boon, and we've written a story about identical brothers. Mine is about one of the brothers. His name is Ruthrie, and her hero is Lord Robert. And so
Mhm.
she's done a second. So my book comes first, her book comes second, and they're kind of
Mm.
intertwined a little bit. So that was a really steep learning curve.
Uh-huh.
And that was probably the hardest book I've ever written because we've set it in Ireland, which I didn't know much about.
Mhm.
Never been, I don't think, and I didn't know anything about the Irish history. So, but also sort of learning to work with another author as well. So
Mhm.
our stories aren't the same. There are 2 books, but obviously if they were identical brothers, so if something happened in mine, I had to kind of clarify that she was okay with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was pretty tough. Anyway, that's been accepted, so that's that's
Brilliant.
really
Congratulations.
tough.
So
And
they're
then
going to
yes,
be, so it's not going to be like, because I know Mills and Boon do quite a few like double books. So it's not going to be one of those that are actually going to be released
no.
separately.
So my book will be released in I think it's October, and hers
Mhm.
is November. So
They have a quick turnaround, don't they?
mm,
Mills and Boon of getting the editing and
it is very quick. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Um, yeah. So what I wanted to ask you next is, what's the most exciting thing that has happened to you as a writer, like in your writing career?
Or it's again, that's quite a hard question. I don't know whether you
Mm.
found this, but it's all exciting.
Mhm.
That very first time when they said yes for a book, not Mills and Boon, the publisher before, when they said
Mhm.
yes, that I, I just can't really recapture that excitement.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
just, that somebody finally, it was all this writing. It wasn't just me being indulgent. Someone was going to pay me for it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a fabulous feeling that was. But then
Was it
it's
a
all
phone
exciting.
call?
Pardon?
Was it a phone call?
No, that was an email.
Mhm.
The Mills and Boon thing was a phone call. They said, now I know that if you get a phone call, if they say, "Can we speak to you on the phone?" Mills and Boon, that is a really good sign. But
Mhm.
at the time, I didn't realise that. I just thought they were
Mhm.
gonna give me feedback on the
Yeah.
manuscript that I'd submitted. So I had my pen and paper, and I was in work, and I asked them if I could just have 5 minutes. So I went out and sat in the car park on the floor because I had nowhere else to go. And and I had my pen and my paper, and they just said, "Oh, we'd like to offer you a contract." I was like, "Oh!" So yeah, that was extremely exciting as well. Yeah. But getting the books through the post, that's exciting, isn't it?
Mm,
When you go to the
yeah.
shop and it's there,
Mhm.
or a library and it's there, it's been brilliant. The whole
Yeah.
thing.
Oh. And what's the best thing about being a Mills and Boon author in particular?
Um, ooh, I think there's quite a lot of things that I really love about being a Mills and Boon author. My I started at the same time as a few other women, and we formed like a really strong friendship group, and that's been
Mhm.
fabulous.
Mhm.
But I think Mills and Boon in particular, it's such a strong brand, and it's been
Mhm.
going for so long, and to be part of that, and people know who they are. Um,
Mm.
they're global. So yeah, so that's a major thing for me. But the other thing that I really love, actually, I should say, is the translations. It's
Oh, that must be wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, it's translated into so many different languages, and then when you get a translation, you don't know what it says. No idea. The only way you can work it out is by the cover. So yeah, sometimes the covers are different, so that's even harder to work out who it is because I've got no idea. But but yeah, so exciting to get that through the post. I
Mhm.
love
Oh,
it.
and do you get sent a copy of each of the translations, do you?
Yes, behind me that I think I have it on
Lovely.
this. Where is it? These are the translations. Oh, if we go this way, this is the Warrior Knight and the Widow. It's
Uh-huh.
in German. Which way to hold it that way?
Oh, that's cool.
It's really cool, isn't it? And these aren't the couple that they're not on the front cover of the British
Mhm.
version or the Swedish version or the Danish version. Anyway, I love
Yeah.
it. So
Brilliant. And it's so cool to think of your story being read in, like,
mm,
in Germany, in
madness.
German. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, I love that. Right. I think we have got some questions for you that have come through from people on my YouTube um, channel messaging me and also people from Facebook. So let's see what other people would like to ask you. Right. So Angela Drake says, what interesting facts did you uncover while researching your books that you found the most intriguing or amusing?
Well, when I first started writing it, I had sort of these preconceived ideas. Well, everybody does, I think, about what life was like in medieval times, and then quite a few of my situations take place when they're having a feast. So my hero and the heroine are sitting down to eat, and I just assumed they were picking up a fork and a knife, and they would just be eating away. And of course, forks weren't invented, it turns out.
Right.
And then I discovered that they would take a little, and I said, "Oh, I think it's quite cute." They would have their own spoon, and they would take their spoon with them wherever they went, and then they would eat with their spoon.
Oh,
And
I do that now. It's just handy to have a spoon with you.
yeah, and obviously they'd have their own knife, and they didn't have plate. They would put all their food onto this trencher, which was bread, or it could be like um, a wooden board. They'd eat that, and then they'd eat the bread as well, I think. And then the trencher is what we now have as like wooden chopping board. That is
Mhm.
how that's involved into that. And then the other thing that in my first book, they were my hero and heroine were in a carriage for ages, and then I realised that carriages weren't invented for another couple of
Mhm.
hundred years. So then they had to go into like just a cart and ride on the back of a cart.
Oh,
But
poor things.
yeah, not uncomfortable. But now my first thing is when I've got a thought, I Google when was this invented, because
Sure.
yeah, you could come across, because people do pick that up. People do
Mhm.
that sort of thing up if you've got
Yeah, I think people who really enjoy historicals and read a lot of them, they're interested in history, aren't they? So they will pick things up if it's not quite right
yeah,
and be very vocal about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Then my friend Nicole from Nicole's Bookish Nook asked, how long does your historical research take for one novel?
That's difficult to say really, because I do a lot of the King's Knight series, for example, was set prior, just in the early years before the conflict with France and the Hundred Years' War sort of really kicked off. So I read a lot around that before starting the series. Then I might go to a castle and might look around the castle. I suppose that could take like a day, couldn't it? But also I enjoy doing that anyway.
Yeah, and we're so lucky. Ella actually lives in Wales as well, so we're surrounded by castles, aren't we?
Exactly.
I mean, but you're never more than an hour away from a castle. So.
No. So, sometimes I suppose it's a couple of days initially, and then as and when I need to find a fact, like with that carriage. That didn't take very long to find out, but it actually had a huge implication on the novel. So
sure.
The 5 minutes was a couple of hours rewrite. So
yeah, but I guess as well, because you're writing series, most of the research will be done for the first book. Yes. I imagine, making sure that you've got the actual historical period right.
Yes.
And then it's only if they're somewhere, a different castle or in a different place in the UK or whatever, that you would need to do a lot more research for the other ones, I imagine.
Yes. Well, I mean, this Irish, the Irish one that I was just talking about that I did with Melissa Rothloff, that was hours and hours and hours of research because I didn't know anything about Irish history at all, so I'm having to find that out beforehand. But yeah, I would say you would do that before the novel starts. Although with the Irish one, I had so many questions because I didn't. What happened is some of the Irish invited the Anglo-Normans over to help subdue some of the other Irish. And that's a big plot point in my story, and in fact in Melissa's story as well. And I couldn't get my head around why they would do that. So I kept having to go back and trying to find out. And obviously it's such a long time ago. It's almost 1,000 years ago. Yeah, it's almost 1,000 years ago now. So they didn't have written records. And so you can't. So at some point it's got to be guesswork as well. Sure. Which in some ways makes it easier to write medieval because there's a lot don't know. Yeah. Obviously, sometimes it makes it harder because someone might have found out an obscure fact and they might say, well, actually, this is the answer.
Yeah. This is, check this academic paper that says that in one place where you happen to set your book, they did have forks.
Yes, exactly.
And the final question is from Catherine Paddock, and she asks, what age did you start writing, which we've kind of already covered, and what inspired you?
Well, I mean, I started writing properly when I was in my 20s, but I was, like any author, I think you start when you're a child, that you're really, I writing stories from as long as I can remember. I've still got the books with my scrawls and pictures all over it. I can't draw, so that was never going to be a success. And what inspires me? So many different things, I would say. I read so much, and that inspires you, doesn't it? Just picking up a book, you get ideas from other authors, and I think you kind of get the language that's used that you enjoy, and you try and sort of bring that into your own writing. In terms of what inspires me for the historical ones, again, that's always different. So the King's Knight series, I went to Caerphilly Castle, which is a really lovely castle. If you're ever in the area, I would really recommend it. I know you've said
it is lovely, but there are evil geese there who took again my son and chased him around the castle, which was quite amusing.
Really? I don't think we saw any geese, but it was very wet when we went. Maybe they were somewhere else. That's a really good one. And as we were walking around there, they've done this amazing mock-up where they were showing how, if a castle was under siege, how the knights and the people inside would respond. And I'd never seen it before because they actually stuck wood to the outside of the castle. Right. They put platforms, which I didn't know. And I don't know how, but I just suddenly thought, wouldn't it be amazing to have to set my next series in the castle and show how they lived. And so although the books are around the 100 Years' War, they also a lot of the action takes place within castles because of this, because I was just standing there and just thought I'd love to know what it would be like to live here. And that's triggered that idea. Sorry, that was a very long answer.
No, it was really, I'm absolutely fascinated because I would love to write a historical at some point, but yeah, I'm just, the idea of the amount of research and how well you need to know the period just kind of scares me. So I love to hear like how you manage it and just not getting bogged down, because obviously it's the romance that is at it's at the core of it, and it is what the people are wanting to read.
Yeah, so in A Mills Boon, the romance is absolutely core, and the historical details come second or even third, really. And so it's more of a just sort of sprinkle it in to make sure that they've got the atmosphere.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much for agreeing to come. Yeah, and I have learnt a huge amount, and I'm probably going to completely ignore the projects that I've got going on now while I work out how I can possibly write a historical and submit to Mills Boon. Okay, well, thank you everyone for watching. I really hope that you've learnt something from Ella as well. All the links to Ella's books and her social media and stuff like that will be down in the description below. So make sure that you go and check her books out if you haven't already, because I absolutely love them and I'm sure that you will too. I will be back with another video very soon. Please make sure that you like this video if you haven't had a chance to already, and subscribe for lots more writery stuff, which I hope you'll really enjoy. And I will catch you in the next one. Thank you again, Ella, and I will chat to you again soon.
Bye.